The sign, the call to save Israel, created action within him. In Judges chapter 6, verse 24, it says, "So Gideon built an altar to the Lord there, and called it, 'The Lord is Peace.'" In other words, an altar of peace and wholeness had to be established in the midst of the trying and confusing times. That same night, the Lord gave him instructions to tear down his father's idolatrous altar to Baal and build a proper kind of altar to the Lord your God on the top of this height. See Judges chapter 6, verse 26. Here is the scenario. Baal, the most prominent idol mentioned throughout the Bible, was the demonic ruler of Canaan. To destroy Baal's altar, along with the Asherah pole beside it, was certain to incur the wrath of Baal's worshippers, as well as anger the demonic presence. This action was a bold declaration that the ruler of that land was being dethroned. But Gideon obeyed God. At night, with 10 of his servants, he tore down the idolatrous altar, built a new altar to God, and made a sacrifice upon it. The next morning, as he expected, the townspeople were furious and demanded that Gideon be put to death. His father made the logical argument that if Baal were a god, he could defend himself when someone came to break down his altar. The people were silenced, and ultimately Gideon led Israel into battle, gaining freedom from the oppression of the Midianites. It is time for a generation of Gideons to arise and change the course of nations. We must have a generation that tears down iniquitous altars. To remove the evil, we must have a generation that builds altars filled with God's uncompromising fire. It is not enough just to overthrow and defeat the powers in a region. We must then build God's plan of worship. This book will help you understand how to build an altar so that the renewed fire comes to God's people. Dr. Alemu Beeftu, my co-author for this book, has established the key to seeing a nation shift. He is a man of God from Ethiopia with one desire: to see the fire of God sweeping through nations. We will explain how each individual altar is built to contain this fire. This altar is a place for presenting our sacrifices of worship and praise. The altar of God is not an ancient concept, but a necessary element in our worship today. It is a place of anointing. An anointing breaks the yoke of the enemy. The altar is a place of overcoming. The altar is a place of daily communion. In this book, you will learn much about worship and will be motivated to go up to a high place, tear down the devil's altar, and build God's altar. Now is the time for our generation to build God's altar so that his fire may fall. Rekindle the altar fire defies any dispensation and says, "Build now. Your future depends on the altar." Build, sacrifice, and commune. God's command to the children of Israel through Moses was to construct altars on which sacrifices and offerings would be placed. In Exodus chapter 20, verse 24, it says, "Make an altar of earth for me, and sacrifice on it your burnt offerings and fellowship offerings, your sheep and goats and your cattle. Wherever I cause my name to be honored, I will come to you and bless you." The reason he commanded altars to be built was to establish a meeting place of relationship. In essence, God was saying, "Honor me, and I will bless you." God was not promising to bless the altars, although wherever his presence is, there is blessing. He was promising to bless the people who built the altars. Every believer in every generation desires that blessing, that fire, to fall from God's throne. Without that fire, we quietly and desperately lead the lives of servants, but not children, hired hands, but not heirs to a kingdom. That kind of servitude is not what Jesus meant when he said, "I have come that they may have life and have it to the full." See John chapter 10, verse 10. Maybe you have thought of the fire that comes from God as passion or drive or enthusiasm. We have chosen the word